3 years of marriage, and still no children. My parents kept urging us to see a doctor. Eventually, the truth came out. It was my wife who couldn't conceive. But instead of telling her, I chose to hide it, claiming that the problem was mine. Her response cut deeper than any diagnosis. What? You're infertile? Then I want a divorce. The house and the car are mine. 3 years and 4 months into our marriage, and Victoria Bellellweather and I were still waiting for the good news that never came. Again, Victoria muttered one evening, placing her phone down on the coffee table. Her voice carried exhaustion. I didn't need to ask. I already knew her mom had called. The same pressure, the same reminders. It had become as punctual as a morning alarm. I kept my eyes fixed on my computer, typing the last lines of a work report. Avoidance wasn't brave, but it worked. At least for the moment. Victoria walked over, standing behind me. Her fingers rested lightly on my shoulder, but they felt as heavy as stone. The faint scent of her shampoo mixed with bitter herbal remedies filled the air. She had started a new prescription recently, supposedly from a distant cousin's mother-in-law in the countryside. Sincere Smith, can you not pretend to be busy every time this topic comes up? I sighed, saved the document, and swiveled my chair toward her. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. She hadn't been sleeping well. I knew because I'd felt her tossing and turning beside me every night. Haven't we tried everything already? I kept my voice calm. Ovulation calculators, thermometers, all those positions. Even that ridiculous 30-minute headstand your mom suggested. Victoria bit her lip, holding back tears. My parents want us to go to the hospital. The words hit me hard. A hospital visit meant admitting there really was a problem, one that effort alone couldn't fix. As a man, the thought made me instinctively recoil. Just give it more time, I said, reaching for her hand. Maybe it's stress. You know my workload lately. Her voice broke as she pulled away. It's been 3 years, Sincere. Not 3 months, 3 years. Mrs. Wang at my office, who married after me, is already pregnant with her second child. And us? I had no answer. Only the sound of the computer fan and the faint car horns from outside filled the silence. Victoria turned, walked into the bedroom, and closed the door softly. The click was quiet, but it struck me like a hammer. That night, I lay in bed pretending to be asleep, listening to her muffled sobs. For the first time, I asked myself, what if one of us really did have a problem? What then? That weekend, my mother-in-law Eleanor showed up without warning. The doorbell rang while I was playing video games. Victoria was in the kitchen brewing yet another pot of herbal tea meant to warm the womb and help conception. Mom, what are you doing here? Victoria asked as she opened the door, wiping her hands on a towel. Just came to see you, Eleanor's voice boomed. She carried 2 bulging bags, and I brought some good stuff. I glanced over. Dried herbs, packets of medicine, more folk remedies. My stomach knotted. Eleanor plopped onto the sofa opposite me, eyes darting to my game screen. Your father called me yesterday. The old couple's getting anxious. I put the controller down, massaging my temples. Eleanor, you can't rush these things. Why not? She cut me off. Victoria is already 30. If she waits much longer, she'll be a high-risk pregnancy. You young people don't understand. Back in my day, Mom. Victoria rushed over with tea, stopping the lecture before it began. Eleanor took a sip, then lowered her voice. The Chen couple in the next building, 5 years without kids. They went to the hospital. Turned out the husband's sperm had low motility. My fingers dug into the sofa cushion. Mom, stop it. Victoria's face turned pale. All right, Eleanor waved dismissively. But then she pulled out a crumpled paper from her purse. Here, a prescription copied from the provincial hospital, specifically for I couldn't take it anymore. I stood. I'm going out for cigarettes. The cold wind outside hit my face, and I realized I was trembling. Not from anger, but fear. What if it really was my problem? What if I was defective, like that guy in the next building? I sat on a park bench for 2 hours before Victoria finally texted, asking when I was coming home. When I returned, Eleanor was gone. A pot of black herbal brew sat on the table. I'm sorry, Victoria said softly. I didn't know she was coming. I shook my head. Then, suddenly, I made a decision. Let's go to the hospital. Victoria looked at me, startled. A flash of something panic crossed her eyes, but not because of their pressure, I added. Because we need to know the truth. The truth came swiftly. Dr. Ethan White slid the report across his desk, the lamp's glow highlighting the bold words, bilateral fallopian tube obstruction. A loud buzzing filled my ears as I stared at the diagnosis. Sincere, you need to be prepared, Ethan said gently. With your wife's condition, the probability of natural conception is virtually zero. I nodded mechanically, rubbing the edge of the paper. The antiseptic smell of the office burned my eyes. Your results, however? Ethan handed me another sheet. Are excellent. Sperm motility at 89%. Count well above standard. I stared at the proof of my health and felt guilt pierce me like a blade. For 3 years, Victoria had swallowed countless bitter remedies, tracked her ovulation cycles, even prayed at a temple in secret. Every time her period came, she pretended it didn't matter, but I'd seen her cry behind the bathroom door. Ethan, my voice cracked. Do me a favor. What? Change my report. Say the problem's with me. Ethan's eyebrows shot up. Are you insane? She's proud, I said hoarsely. If she knows it's her. I pointed at his computer. Just say my sperm motility is low, that I need treatment. Ethan stared at me for a long moment before chuckling. Softly, Sincere Smith, I never thought you'd be such a romantic fool. Still, he turned to his keyboard. But you can't keep this lie forever. The moment IVF comes up, they'll know. The printer whirred, spitting out a brand new report. Azoospermia, survival rate under 30. Thanks, I muttered, folding the real report and sliding it into my wallet. Don't thank me yet, Ethan warned, handing me a bottle of vitamins. Make it look convincing. Take these every day and don't let her find out they're just supplements. On the way home, I rehearsed how to tell Victoria. At a red light, a child in the car beside me pressed his face against the window, grinning, dimples deep. My chest tightened. I hit the gas. My hands trembled as I placed the forged report on the dining table. It looked perfect, down to the hospitals. Official seal, Azoospermia, the cruel headline of the play I was about to stage. Victoria was in the kitchen cutting fruit, the knife hitting the board in a steady rhythm. She wore my favorite blue loungewear, her damp hair falling loosely around her shoulders. Victoria, come here for a second, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She walked over with a platter of fruit, carefully arranged strawberries, and mangoes in the shape of a flower, as meticulous as everything she did. What's wrong? She asked, picking up a piece of mango to feed me. I dodged it and slid the report on the table toward her. The test results are back. Her smile froze in place. She wiped her fingers on her apron before picking up the papers. I watched her eyes dart across the medical terms, pausing at fallopian tubes unobstructed and ovulation normal before widening in shock. Azoospermia, her voice shot up. It's your problem? I nodded. The comforting words I had prepared stuck in my throat. Her reaction was nothing like I had imagined. No self-blame, no empathy, just a complicated expression I couldn't read. A survival rate of only 28. She gripped the report so tightly her knuckles turned white. Does that mean it's almost impossible to conceive naturally? The doctor said not necessarily. I tried, reaching for her hand, but she pulled it away. Suddenly, Victoria stood up, the chair screeching across the floor. Sincere Smith, her voice was ice cold. Let's get a divorce. I froze, ears ringing. I thought I had misheard. What? Divorce? She repeated, each syllable sharp. A strange light flickered in her eyes. I can't spend my life with a man who can't have children. Her words stabbed me like a knife. 3 years of bitter tonics she had swallowed, ovulation charts she had kept, tears she had shed in silence, none of it matched the cold woman now standing before me. Are you serious? I finally choked out, perfectly serious. She turned toward the bedroom. The house and the car go to me. After all, you wasted 3 years of my youth. Wasted? I shot up, my chair crashing to the floor. Victoria, say that again, I dare you. She stopped at the bedroom door, chin raised defiantly. Was I wrong? If I had known you had a problem earlier, I never would have, never. Would have what? I lunged forward and grabbed her wrist. Never would have married you, so you only married me to be a baby-making machine? She wrenched her hand free with a sneer. Don't make yourself sound noble. Didn't your mother try to set you up with someone just last week? Your whole family is the same. I was thunderstruck. I had never told her about that. How? How did you know? That's not important, she said, pulling open the closet and tossing clothes into a suitcase. What's important is that I have to think about myself now. I stared at her back, a wave of absurd comedy crashing over me. The lie I had crafted to protect her was now the very weapon she used to stab me. Wait, I said, stopping her hand as she packed. What if the doctor says it's treatable? She paused, pity flashing in her eyes. Sincere, don't kid yourself. A 28% survival rate. Is that really treatable? Should I tell her the truth? Tell her that she was the one with the problem? That I was just trying to protect her pride? But her cold expression left me unsure. So these 3 years, my voice trembled. All that talk about wanting a child. Was it all just to complete some task? She zipped her suitcase and took a deep breath. I did love you truly, but I want a complete family more. Is that so wrong? No, it's not wrong, I said hoarsely, but you could at least pretend to be sad. That broke something in her. Victoria's eyes reddened, her voice shaking. You think I'm not sad? I spent every day wondering why me, why us. She wiped her face, but at least now I know the reason. I can start over with all my assets? I sneered. The law will grant them to me. She shot back, standing tall. Didn't you know? The infertile party is at a disadvantage in a divorce. That was the final straw. I ripped the suitcase from her hands and flung it to the floor. Clothes scattered everywhere. Fine, Victoria. So you've already done your research. The minute you saw the report, you were planning how to divide the assets. Are you crazy? She screamed, shoving me. Don't touch my things. We fought like strangers. Her nails dug into my arms, me shoving her hands away. When we finally tore apart, gasping for air, her necklace broke the one I gave her. When I proposed, pearls scattered across the floor. When the door slammed shut behind her, I was still on the floor, clutching the broken clasp of that necklace. On the dining table, the forged medical report lay like a cruel monument. The doorbell rang. I was in the living room cleaning up what Victoria had left behind: a half-used lipstick, a few pregnancy wellness books, a beach photo stuck on the fridge. It had been 3 days since she'd asked for divorce, and I had wandered through the house like a ghost through the peephole. I saw my mother-in-law. For once, her face was bare, the wrinkles usually hidden under makeup showing clearly. Sincere, she said the moment I opened the door, pushing past me with a heavy wave of perfume. We need to talk. I didn't stop her. I just watched her heels track mud across the freshly mopped floor. She scanned the room, her eyes lingering on Victoria's leftovers before landing on the forged report on the table. Have a seat, I said quietly, pointing at the sofa, but Eleanor didn't sit. She pulled a stack of documents from her handbag and slapped them on the coffee table. This is the divorce agreement. Take a look. I flipped through the first page. The asset division section was highlighted in garish fluorescent yellow: house to Victoria, car to Victoria, and even 60% of the investment fund I'd bought last year. Eleanor, I said, closing the folder. Do you know why Victoria suddenly wants a divorce? Is there even a need to ask? She sneered. You're infertile. You've wasted years of her life. Isn't compensation the least you owe? I clenched my fists, nails biting into my palms. The fake report just a few feet away mocked my stupidity. And if I don't sign? Then we'll see you in court. She tapped her scarlet nails on the folder. Judges favor women who can't have children. I bet the ruling will be even harsher than this. I shot to my feet, blood pounding in my temples. Did Victoria tell you I was the one who couldn't conceive? It's written right there in black and white. Eleanor snapped. What? Are you trying to back out now? We were seconds away from exploding when the sound of a key in the lock sliced the tension. My mother, Helen, stepped inside carrying a grocery basket, her face grim. She had clearly been listening. Well, my mom said coldly, dropping the basket. Eleanor, bullying my son because he's too honest for his own good. Eleanor rolled her eyes. Oh, look who it is, the protective mother. Your son is the one who's broken, and you're blaming my Victoria. That's bullshit, my mom snapped. She stormed into my bedroom, yanked open a drawer, and pulled out the real report. She shoved it in Eleanor's face. Look at this. Open your damn eyes. Your daughter is the one with the problem. Time froze. Eleanor's hands shook as she read, her face draining of color. This is impossible. Her voice was barely a whisper. Victoria said it was sincere. She lied. My mom spat. My son had the doctor change the report to protect her fragile pride. And what did he get? You two scheming to rob him of everything. Eleanor collapsed onto the sofa, pale and silent. Then the front door burst open. Victoria rushed in, clutching her car keys, her face ashen. She had clearly overheard. "Mom," she trembled. "What are you doing here?" Eleanor jumped up like she had found a lifeline and shoved the fake report at her daughter. "Victoria, what is going on? Sincere's mother is saying you, but—" The moment Victoria saw the report, she froze, as if struck by lightning. Her eyes darted from the paper to my face, quickly filling with tears. You changed the report." Her voice was barely a whisper. I turned away, unable to look at her. "Does it even matter now? Haven't you already decided on a divorce?" "I didn't know." Victoria suddenly burst into tears. "I thought it was really you. And so you rushed to divide the assets," my mom sneered. "Couldn't even wait 3 days." Eleanor suddenly pointed a finger at my mom, as if she had found some leverage. "Wait, if Sincere really did change the report, that's deception. Legally? What?" My mom cut her off sharply. "My son didn't cheat. He didn't abuse her. He took the blame for his wife out of love. Is that a crime?" At that moment, Victoria did something that stunned everyone. She fell to her knees. Not a dramatic half-kneel, but a full collapse onto both knees, the thud echoing in the silent room. "Sincere," she looked up at me, tears smearing her makeup. "I didn't know. I really didn't know." I took a step back, avoiding the hand she stretched out. The cold, ruthless Victoria from 3 days ago and the broken, weeping woman in front of me blurred together, and I couldn't tell which one was real. Eleanor panicked and rushed to pull her daughter up. "Victoria, what are you doing? Get up. Mom, stay out of this." Victoria shook her off and shuffled forward on her knees until she wrapped her arms around my legs. "Sincere, I'm sorry. I was so scared. I thought you were going to leave me." I looked down at her tear-streaked face, a heavy weight pressing on my chest. This was the woman I had sworn to protect for the rest of my life, and now she was kneeling before me like a stranger. My mom yanked Victoria away. "Who are you trying to fool with this pathetic act? Now that you know my son is fine, you don't want a divorce anymore? Is that it?" "No." Victoria shook her head desperately, tears and snot covering her face. "I've always loved Sincere. I was just what?" I asked, my voice raw. "Just more interested in having a baby?" Victoria's crying stopped abruptly. Her silence was more brutal than any answer. Eleanor suddenly rushed over and shoved me. "Sincere Smith, are you even a man? My daughter is in this state and you enough." My mom stood in front of me, her voice sharp. "What kind of show are you two putting on? Good cop, bad cop?" The two mothers glared at each other like fighting roosters while Victoria and I stood on opposite sides of the room, separated by the crumpled fake report. The lie I had told 3 days ago had come back like a boomerang, hitting me straight in the heart. Victoria slowly stood up, wiped her face, and managed a smile that was uglier than her crying. "Sincere, that real report. Can I see it?" I hesitated, then took it from my mom and handed it to her. She studied it for a long time, her finger tracing the words bilateral fallopian tube obstruction. Then she looked up at me, something in her eyes dimming, extinguishing. "So, we really can't have our own child?" The question was like a dull knife, cutting away the last of our pretenses. I watched the hope drain from her eyes and finally understood how she must have felt when she asked for a divorce. For her, it was the last straw of a drowning person to grasp. "We could do IVF," I said weakly. Victoria shook her head and handed the report back to me. "No, it's fine." She turned to her mother. "Mom, let's go." Eleanor opened her mouth to argue, but was silenced by a single look from Victoria. Instead, she bent down, picked up the divorce agreement, and slowly tore it in half. "I'm sorry," she said, looking at me one last time. "I'm truly sorry." The door closed softly, but it felt like a heavy hammer slamming into my heart. My mom put her arm around my shoulder. I was still clutching the real report, now stained with Victoria's tears, the words blurred. "Son." My mom sighed. "You're better off without a woman like that." I didn't answer. I just walked to the balcony and watched as Victoria got into her mother's car. She glanced up, and for a brief moment, our eyes met across 5 stories before. She quickly looked away. The car drove off, taking with it my 3-year marriage and a carefully woven lie. And the fake report still lay on the dining table, a cruel souvenir from a grim farce. When the morning sun pierced through the curtains, I realized I had slept on the sofa all night. On the coffee table sat a half-finished can of beer next to the reflattened medical report. I rubbed my temples, my throat coated with the bitter taste of a hangover. The doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Victoria and her mother. Victoria wasn't wearing makeup, her eyes swollen like peaches, clutching a thermos tightly. Eleanor was dressed unusually plain, holding a large gift bag. I took a deep breath before opening the door. The cold air from the hallway swept in. Victoria's eyelashes fluttered, either from the wind or because she was about to cry. Sincere, her voice was so hoarse it was almost inaudible. I made you some porridge, her mother gave her. A little push from behind, a forced smile on her face. Sincere, can we come in and talk? I didn't move, blocking the doorway. Eleanor, who had been so arrogant about seizing my assets yesterday, was now hunched like a guilty schoolgirl. And Victoria, my wife, was looking at me with a pleading expression I had never seen before. Whatever you have to say it here. My voice was calmer than I expected. Victoria's fingers fidgeted around the thermos. My mom and I came to apologize. Her gaze darted to the living room behind me. Can we please talk inside? The neighbors might hear. I stepped aside, leaving a narrow gap. They squeezed their way in, bringing with them a chill and a heavy unease. Victoria went straight to the kitchen, pulled out a bowl and spoon, and began serving porridge with the practiced ease of the past 3 years. The aroma of yam and pork rib porridge, my favorite, filled the air. Eleanor placed the gift bag on the coffee table. I saw the edges of several cartons of premium cigarettes, my dad's favorite brand. Sincere, Eleanor began, rubbing her hands together. We were wrong yesterday. We were too impulsive. I didn't respond, just watched her carefully rehearsed act. Victoria brought the porridge over, placed it carefully in front of me, but didn't sit down. She just stood by the sofa, wringing her hands. Eat it while it's hot, she whispered. You have a sensitive stomach. You shouldn't drink on an empty one. I stared at the green onions floating in the porridge, feeling a wave of absurdity. The same woman who had demanded everything I owned 3 days ago was now acting like a devoted wife. What is this? I looked directly at Victoria. Did you finally understand the report? Realize who has the problem? Her face turned white, her lips trembling too much to speak. Eleanor quickly jumped in. Sincere, Victoria knows she was wrong. She cried all night, Mom. Victoria cut her off abruptly. Let me speak for myself. She took a deep breath and knelt before me, forcing our eyes to meet. That's when I noticed the bloodshot veins and dark circles beneath her eyes. Sincere, she said softly, I admit I already knew I might have a problem. I suspected it. Hearing her confess made my chest tighten. I turned away. In the 2nd year of our marriage, I went for a checkup. Her nails dug into her palms. The doctor said it would be very difficult to conceive naturally, and my voice cracked. You just kept it from me? Watched me play the fool, taking folk remedies, charting ovulation cycles with you? I didn't dare tell you. Her tears dripped onto the floor. I was afraid you would leave me, Eleanor. Suddenly cut in. Sincere, modern medicine is so advanced. IVF, shut up. I exploded, shooting to my feet and knocking over the porridge bowl. Hot liquid spilled across the table. Now you want to talk about IVF? Weren't you trying to kick me out with nothing yesterday? Victoria, still on her knees, scrambled to clean the mess, her hands smeared with porridge and tears. Eleanor's face flushed red and white, her mask cracking. Sincere Smith, don't be so unforgiving. My daughter is already like this. What more do you want? What do I want? I sneered. I want to know if that fake report hadn't been exposed, would we be in court right now, fighting over assets? Victoria's wiping hands froze mid-motion. Her motion froze. She lifted her head slowly, and the look on her face sent a chill down my spine. It wasn't anger. It wasn't despair. It was a strange, resigned calm. You're right, she said quietly, standing up. She tossed the soaked paper towels into the trash. If the truth hadn't come out yesterday, I'd already be looking for a lawyer right now, Eleanor gasped. Because I was scared, Victoria added, her eyes locked on mine. Scared of facing the fact that I'm a flawed woman. Scared you would despise me. Scared of losing you. The living room fell into dead silence. Porridge dripped slowly from the coffee table to the floor, like a macabre timer ticking down. So, you decided to abandon me first? The question finally slipped from my lips, the same one that had been haunting me. Tears welled in Victoria's eyes again. When people are scared, they do stupid things. Eleanor suddenly grabbed her purse and stood up. I'll wait for you downstairs. And just like that, she fled, the door closing with an uncharacteristically soft click. Now it was just the two of us, the scent of yam and pork rib porridge lingering in the air like a cruel reminder. Victoria sank to her knees again, wrapping her arms around my legs and pressing her face against me. It was such a familiar gesture, the same way she sought comfort after every nightmare. "I know you don't believe me anymore," her muffled voice came through my jeans. "But please, don't leave me." My hand hovered above her head, but I couldn't bring myself to touch her hair. The dependence that used to soften me now only weighed me down. "Victoria," I gently pushed her away. "I need time." She looked up at me, panic flickering in her eyes. "Time? What do you mean?" "Exactly what it sounds like." I stood and walked toward the window. Her voice turned sharp. "Because I can't have children?" "No." I spun around, my voice rising. "Because I can't trust you. For 3 years you lied to me. You knew there was a problem. You hid it. And when you finally had proof, your first reaction wasn't to tell me, it was to divorce me and take everything. And now that the truth is out, you come crawling back to apologize. What do you take me for?" She stumbled back as if I'd slapped her. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Finally, she just grabbed the thermos and ran for the door. "Wait," I called out. She turned, her eyes glimmering with fragile hope. "Take the cigarettes with you." I pointed to the gift bag on the coffee table. "My dad doesn't need them." The hope drained instantly from her face. She moved back mechanically, picked up the bag, her shoulders slumped under an invisible weight. At the door, she turned to look at me one last time. "Sincere, did you ever love me? Did you really?" The question pierced me like a dull knife. Memories came rushing back, her joyful tears when I proposed, the way she gently covered me with a blanket at night, the honey water she always prepared after I drank, and then the memory of her cold, detached eyes when she asked for a divorce. I heard myself say. "That's why this hurts so much more." The door closed softly, but it felt like the end of an era. I sat back at the coffee table, staring at the congealed porridge. A memory surfaced, the first dinner at her parents' house, when she had clumsily burned the porridge. She had been so embarrassed, but I ate every bite and told her it was delicious. My phone buzzed. A message from Mom. "Son, did they come find you? Don't go soft." That kind of woman. I turned off the screen and stepped onto the balcony, lighting a cigarette. Below, I saw Victoria and Eleanor walking toward the parking lot. Victoria walked slowly, wiping her face now and then, while her mother gestured wildly, as if performing a play. The smoke ring I blew vanished quickly into the cold air. I didn't know what to do next. Forgive her, continue the marriage, or just let go. The only thing I knew for sure was that the cold yam and pork rib porridge had become the most bitter meal I'd ever tasted. "Sincere," she said later, her voice rough as sandpaper. "Can we try one more time?" The cafe's background music reached the chorus of some kitsch love song about returning to the good old days. I twisted my wedding ring. It was loose. I'd lost a lot of weight over the past 6 months. "Do you know why I insisted on separating?" I asked, ignoring her question. Victoria's nails tapped lightly against her coffee cup. "Because you think I'm a bad person." "It's more than that." I pulled off the ring and placed it on the table. The sharp clink of metal on glass echoed. "It's because I realized trust between us is like this ring." I flicked it. It rolled to the edge of the table, wobbling. "It falls apart with the slightest touch." Her tears fell into her coffee, creating tiny ripples. In the past, I would have reached across, felt sympathy. Now, I just felt tired. In the 3 months since that farce, I'd moved into a small apartment near my office. Her messages had shifted from apologies to accusations to silence, like a wildfire slowly burning itself out. "Is it because of her?" Victoria asked suddenly. I froze. "Who?" "Isabel Forrester." She spat the name like ice. The air thickened. I hadn't expected her to know Isabel was back, let alone confront me about it. "It has nothing to do with her," I said, looking away. "We separated 2 months ago. Isabel just got back last, so it is her." Victoria shot up, knocking over her coffee cup. Brown liquid spread across the divorce papers. "Sincere Smith, stop pretending to be a saint. You were the one who what?" I stood, my voice low and dangerous. "Cheated. Had a change of heart." "Victoria, be honest with yourself. Who was it that asked for a divorce first? Who was it that, upon finding out I was infertile, immediately thought of dividing assets?" Her anger deflated instantly like a balloon. pricked by a needle. A waiter rushed over to clean the mess. We stood frozen until he left. So, Victoria finally sank back into her chair, her voice barely a whisper. Are you two back together? I looked out the window at the swaying shadows of the trees. When I'd run into Isabel at a reunion, she was a researcher at a major U.S. reproductive medicine center. Her eyes had shone when she spoke about infertility treatments the same way Victoria's once shone when she talked about baking. Yes, I said curtly. Victoria let out a hollow laugh. How ironic. Does she know that she knows? I cut her off. She knows the whole truth, including the part where I took the blame for you. That was the final nail. Her face went pale, her fingers trembling as they stroked the coffee-stained divorce agreement. The lie I had once told to protect her pride had become the blade cutting her down. What did she say? Victoria whispered through gritted teeth. I remembered Isabel's reaction, not pity, not ridicule, but calm professionalism. She said there are many solutions for fallopian tube obstruction now. Victoria's nails scraped against the tabletop. I'm asking what she thinks of you, of someone who would act like a fool. I gave a self-deprecating smile. She said it was the stupidest, yet most gentle lie she'd ever heard. The waiter brought fresh coffees. Silence swallowed us. Then Victoria slid a folded paper across the table. You should see this. It was a medical report from a women's and children's hospital, dated the week before our big fight. The diagnosis, stage 4 endometriosis with severe bilateral fallopian tube adhesions, stage 4. I frowned. The last checkup said it got worse, Victoria said calmly. Dr. Zhang said the chances of natural conception are 0, and IVF, less than 10%. She paused. I was going to tell you that day. But then, you showed me that fake report. I stared at the hospital's bright red seal, a stone settling heavy in my chest. If I had seen this report first, if she hadn't misunderstood, but there was no point. I wish you a speedy recovery, I said flatly, pushing the report back toward her. She didn't take it. Instead, she pulled a photo from her wallet and placed it on the table. It was us. On our honeymoon, both of us were grinning from ear to ear in that photo. Sincere Smith, Victoria said softly. Loving you was real. Wanting to have a child with you was real. And being afraid of losing you was also real. She stood up, her voice breaking slightly. But using your kindness was the biggest regret of my life. She left the medical report on the table as she walked away. I stayed seated, staring at the photo for a long time, until the waiter came over to ask if I wanted a refill. On the back of the photo, in Victoria's handwriting, was a small line of text, May there be no years to look back on. I couldn't even remember when she wrote it. As I left the cafe, my phone vibrated. It was a picture from Isabel. She was wearing her lab coat, making a peace sign at the camera with various instruments in the background. A text followed right after, new project approved. Celebrate tonight. I bought steak, I replied with a simple okay, then lifted my head toward the sky. The May sun was already blazing, so bright it made me squint. Across the parking lot stood a baby store, its windows filled with the latest strollers. Inside, a few pregnant women were shopping, and then, like a punch to the gut, I remembered being in a similar store with Victoria 3 years ago. She had picked up a little dress and said, if we have a daughter, we'll buy this one. That dress was probably out of season now. When I started the car, I noticed Victoria's lipstick still lying on the passenger seat. For a moment, I hesitated, then tucked it into the glove compartment. In the rearview mirror, the CAF sign grew smaller and smaller until it finally disappeared around the corner. The radio was playing the end of that love song. The last line hit me. Some people, once you miss them, are gone forever. I switched it off and pressed harder on the gas. The traffic light ahead started flashing. I accelerated and ran it. Her call came at 2:17 a.m. I was half asleep, Isabel's arm draped over me, when the phone's vibration on the nightstand buzzed like an annoying mosquito. Groggy, I fumbled for it and answered with a muttered, hello. Sincere, Victoria's tearful voice came through. I'm pregnant. I shot upright, the sudden movement waking Isabel. What's wrong? She murmured, still half asleep. I waved my hand at her and walked out to the balcony. The May night air was cool against my skin, goosebumps rising instantly on my bare arms. What did you just say? I whispered, my fingers tightening on the phone. 4.5 weeks, she said, her breathing rapid, audible through the line. The blood test confirmed it yesterday. I stared at the distant office buildings, their lights scattered across the skyline. The absurdity of it all hit me like a brick. Victoria, I said coldly, we've been separated for 2 months. And you're telling me you're 4.5 weeks pregnant? Do you take me for a fool? It's your child, she stammered. My ovulation was delayed. I slammed my fist against the railing. Did you forget your own medical report? Stage 4 endometriosis, fallopian tube adhesions. The odds of this are lower than winning the lottery. There was silence on the other end for a few seconds. Then, I heard rustling paper. I went for another checkup today, she said, her voice suddenly steadier. Dr. Zhang said it might have been a misdiagnosis. Now the tubes only have minor adhesions. The night wind pounded at my temples. I thought of that coffee-stained report still in my drawer at the apartment. Stage 4, clear as day. But Victoria's words clung to me. Could it be possible? Which hospital? I asked. The city's women's and children's hospital, she replied, pausing before adding softly, sincere. If you don't believe me, you can come with me tomorrow. When I hung up, Isabel was leaning against the glass door, the moonlight painting her white nightgown silver. She held 2 glasses of water, her expression unsettlingly calm. Your ex-wife? She asked, handing me a glass. I took it. The water was perfect, not too hot, not too cold. Isabel always thought of these little details. She said she's pregnant, I said quietly. Isabel's eyebrow twitched ever so slightly. A medical miracle? She said it might have been a misdiagnosis. I drained the glass in one gulp, the bottom catching the moonlight. Then Isabel laughed. Not cruelly, but the kind of laugh a professional gives when hearing a naive explanation. Misdiagnosing stage 4 endometriosis as minor adhesions? That's like mistaking lung cancer for a common cold. She took the empty glass from my hand. I'll go to the hospital with you tomorrow. I wanted to say something, but the words stuck in my throat. I just nodded. The next day, the hospital was crowded as always, pregnant women and their families filling the halls. I spotted Victoria sitting alone on a blue plastic chair in the far corner, wearing a loose beige dress, not her usual style. Her fingers gripped her medical file tightly. And this is? She asked, forcing a smile when she saw Isabel beside me. My girlfriend, I said bluntly. Where's the report? Without a word, Victoria handed me a stack of papers. The latest ultrasound clearly stated early intrauterine pregnancy, viable fetus. Another report showed bilateral fallopian tube patency, minor adhesions. This is impossible, I muttered. The stage 4 report was still at home, coffee-stained and damning. Dr. Zhang said there might have been an issue with the contrast agent last time, Victoria explained softly. That's why the shadow appeared so large. Isabel snatched the reports and scanned them, her frown deepening. Finally, she pointed at the doctor's signature. This Dr. Julia Zhang? White hair, gold-rimmed glasses? Victoria looked surprised. Yes. You know her? Notoriously incompetent, Isabel sneered. At a reproductive medicine conference in the U.S. last year, her published paper was exposed as fraudulent on the spot. I stared at Isabel, the realization dawning. You already knew. I just did a background check on her, Isabel replied, handing the papers back. But medical misdiagnoses do happen. She turned to Victoria. Would you mind if I arrange another checkup? Our center has the most advanced equipment. Victoria's face went pale. She glanced at me, then Isabel, then lowered her head. If that's what Sincere wants. On the subway ride back, Isabel held my hand tightly. As the train swayed, our reflections flickered in the window. What are you thinking? She asked suddenly. I don't know, I admitted. Staring at the ads blurring past, from a medical perspective, Isabel said calmly, the chance of a misdiagnosis exists, but it's very low. She didn't finish the next thought, but I knew it. From a human perspective, a woman on the verge of losing her husband is capable of any lie. That night, I sat on the balcony smoking. My phone lit up with an ultrasound photo from Victoria. A tiny shadow labeled Searle 0.8 cm. I stared at the blurry dot, remembering when we'd just gotten married. At IKEA, Victoria had picked up a giraffe plush and said, we have to put this in the baby's room one day. Ash fell from my cigarette onto the screen. I wiped it away, smudging the image even more. Isabel came up behind me, hugging me gently, her chin resting on my shoulder. If it's real, she whispered, what are you going to do? I didn't answer, because the truth was, I didn't. No, Isabel was smart, independent, someone I could talk to for hours. But Victoria knew I took 3 sugar cubes in my coffee, knew I got migraines when it rained, knew which shirt was my favorite. Let's get her checked at my center tomorrow, Isabel said, kissing my ear softly. At least we can confirm the facts first. The next morning, Victoria was already waiting outside the reproductive center. She wore a pink top this time, looking a little healthier. When she saw Isabel's arm linked through mine, her smile faltered, but she quickly forced it back. The examination went smoother than I expected. Isabel stayed calm, professional, even helping with the equipment herself. When the ultrasound probe slid across Victoria's abdomen, a tiny beating dot appeared on the screen. The heartbeat is strong, the technician said cheerfully. Very healthy for now. Tears instantly spilled down Victoria's cheeks. She grabbed my hand, her own trembling. Sincere, it's our baby. I stared at that flashing dot on the screen, my ears buzzing. Isabel stood off to the side with a professional smile, but I knew her hand was clenched tight into a fist. After the exam, Isabel excused herself early. I caught up with her in the parking lot. When she turned around, there were tears glistening in the corners of her eyes. Congratulations, she said, forcing a smile. It really is a medical miracle, Isabel. I'll give you a week to think. She cut me off, her voice soft but firm. I have no intention of being part of a love triangle. Watching her walk away, I realized I was standing at a crossroads in my life. To the left was a new life of rationality and maturity. To the right was the old path full of regrets, but also carrying hidden surprises. When I got home, a voice message from Victoria was waiting. I played it. After a few seconds of static, there was a faint but clear thump-thump sound, a recording of the fetal heartbeat. In the background, Victoria's tearful voice said, "Listen, it's so strong." I pressed the phone to my ear and listened to it again and again. That small, powerful heartbeat was like a hammer striking my chest over and over. On the coffee table sat a photo of Isabel and me from last week, with the sunny California beach behind us. Not long after, I was in the lawyer's office, staring at the divorce agreement on the table. Victoria sat across from me, her fingers tapping lightly against the wood, her gaze cold. Her pregnancy wasn't showing much yet, but that ultrasound report had become her strongest bargaining chip. I'll take responsibility for the child. I began slowly. I'll pay child support as required by law, but as for the house and savings, I can only give you half. The corner of Victoria's mouth twitched as if she just heard a ridiculous joke. She looked up, her eyes full of scorn. "Sincere Smith, have you forgotten who lied to me about being infertile? Now that there's a child, you want to haggle with me?" I sneered. "You're the one who said it was a misdiagnosis, and now you're using it as leverage. That doesn't matter." She leaned back, folding her arms across her slightly swollen belly. "What matters is that the child needs a stable environment. The house is mine. The savings are mine. You can take the car." I stared at her, suddenly realizing how unfamiliar she felt. A few months ago, she was on her knees begging me not to leave her. Now she sat across from me like a shrewd businesswoman, using our unborn child as a pawn to calculate every last penny. Impossible, I refused flatly. My parents made the down payment on the house. We paid the mortgage together. Why should it all go to you? Because the child is in my belly. Her voice rose sharply. "Do you want your child to be born without a home?" Before I could respond, the office door opened and in strode my mother-in-law, Eleanor, her high heels clicking on the floor. She wore her usual "I'm only doing this for your own good" expression. Sincere, she began with her familiar brand of moral blackmail. "You have a child on the way. Why must you to be like this? A husband and wife are best together. Why don't you get back together?" I cut her off. "And then what? Go back to living a life of mutual suspicion?" Eleanor's smile froze for a second, then she sighed. "If you really don't want to, we won't force you. But the child is innocent. You have to think about them." She paused, her meaning clear. "Money is just a material possession. Why fuss over it?" That was when I finally understood. The mother and daughter duo had already calculated everything. Either I compromised and remarried, continuing to play the obedient husband, or I walked away with nothing, leaving all my assets to them. "Ma'am," I stared at Eleanor, speaking each word carefully, "do you really think I'm a fool?" Her expression flickered, but she quickly put her mask of earnest concern back on. "My dear boy, what a thing to say. Aren't we just discussing things?" "Discussing?" I scoffed. "You're trying to force me to sign." Victoria finally lost her patience. "Sincere Smith, what do you want?" "It's simple." I picked up the pen, crossed out her demands on the agreement, and wrote a new version. "I will be responsible for the child and pay child support according to the law. but the assets must be divided equally. You can live in the house temporarily, but the title must be in both our names. We'll decide who it goes to when the child is an adult." Victoria's face twisted with anger. "In your dreams," Eleanor's face hardened too. "Sincere, you're being selfish." "Selfish?" I laughed bitterly. "Who's the selfish one here? Did you really think you could use a child to make me bow down?" Victoria shot to her feet, her eyes red. "Sincere Smith, you'll regret this." "Regret?" I stood as well, towering over her. "The only thing I regret is not seeing your true colors sooner." With that, I turned and walked out of the office, the door slamming shut behind me. In the hallway, I drew a deep breath and pulled out my phone. I found Isabel's number and, after a moment's hesitation, dialed it. "Is it over?" Her voice was calm. "Yeah." I rubbed my brow. "They wanted everything." I said no. There was a moment of silence, then her soft laugh. "I figured as much. You were right," I said with a bitter smile. "Some people only show their true colors when there's something at stake." Isabel's voice softened. "So, what are you thinking now?" I looked at the sunlight outside the window, and suddenly everything felt incredibly clear. I won't be short a single penny on the child support I owe, but them trying to blackmail me with a child? Not a chance." She laughed lightly. "Seems you've really thought it through." After hanging up, I strode towards the elevator, feeling lighter than I had in a long time. Some people are only meant to walk with you for part of your journey. A real future shouldn't be held hostage by lies and schemes. The courthouse hallway stretched long, its cold white lights reflecting off the polished floor, casting elongated shadows of Victoria and me as we walked one behind the other. She wore a loose maternity dress, her belly already showing a slight curve. She clutched a stack of documents, her face as cold as ice. 3 months ago, she was crying and begging me to take her back. Now we stood at the courtroom doors, waiting for a judge to declare the end of our marriage. "This is your last chance, Sincere Smith," she hissed, her eyes sharp. "Withdraw the lawsuit now and we can still talk." I tugged at my tie and sneered. "Talk about what?" "How you schemed to take all my assets?" Her expression froze for just a moment before she recovered her icy mask. "Suit yourself." The judge's gavel fell, and the hearing began. Victoria's lawyer immediately went on the offensive, emphasizing her vulnerable position as a pregnant woman and demanding the house, the savings, and a high amount of child support all go to her. He even presented the asthenospermia report I had forged, attempting to prove I had been deceptive during the marriage. "Mr. Smith, do you admit that you intentionally concealed your true fertility status from my client?" the opposing lawyer pressed. I looked straight at Victoria. She avoided my gaze, her fingers unconsciously rubbing her belly. "I admit it," I answered calmly, "but my intention was to protect her self-esteem, not to deceive her." The judge frowned as he looked through the documents. "Miss Bellwether, did you conceal your own medical condition during the marriage?" Victoria bit her lip. I just couldn't find the right time to say it. Her lawyer quickly interjected. "Your Honor, regardless of whether either party concealed information, my client is currently pregnant, and the law should prioritize the rights of the mother and unborn child." My lawyer was ready. He submitted Victoria's previous medical reports and the latest test results, proving that her infertility had likely been a misdiagnosis and didn't rule out deliberate manipulation. Furthermore, my lawyer added, "My client is willing to fulfill his parental responsibilities, but the down payment for the house was provided by Mr. Smith's parents. The portion of the mortgage paid off during the marriage can be divided, but the entire property should not go to Miss Bellwether." The hearing lasted for 3 long hours. Victoria's face grew darker and darker. Her mother, sitting in the gallery, glared at me with venom in her eyes. Finally, the judge's gavel fell and the verdict was announced. The divorce was granted, the house was awarded to me. But I was required to compensate Victoria for her share of the mortgage payments made during the marriage, plus appreciation. The savings were to be divided equally. After the child is born, I must pay child support equivalent to 20% of my income, with visitation rights. After hearing the verdict, Victoria shot to her feet. "This is unfair." The judge remained expressionless. "If you disagree with the ruling, you may appeal." As I was leaving the courthouse, Victoria stepped in front of me, blocking my path. Her eyes were red. "Are you satisfied now, Sincere Smith?" I looked at her and suddenly felt drained. "Victoria, whose fault is it that we ended up here?" She opened her mouth, but no words came out. After a long pause, she simply turned and walked away. Her mother shot me a vicious glare. You'll get what's coming to you. I just smiled faintly and didn't answer. My comeuppance. If insisting on fairness is my comeuppance, then I'll accept it. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a message from Isabel. Is it over? I replied, yes, and lifted my head toward the sky. The sunlight was sharp, almost blinding, but it felt clean. This marriage had finally come to an end.